Welcome back in, everyone. Snapping around. Guys, this episode is going to be jam packed with a lot. We're going to try to keep this around 50 minutes, do our best here. But I mean, it's supposed to be our Atlantic review, midseason review, kind of go through in that division. But I kind of want to start with the bigger trades that have happened around the NHL, especially the Miller to New York one, because that influences a lot of influences this Atlantic Division talk because so many of those teams are in competition with the Rangers right now for the wild card positions in the playoffs. But what's like, I mean, I think most of us kind of knew Miller was going to be shipped out of Vancouver, and it seemed likely to the Rangers. He had a no movement clause. He controlled where he was going to go. I just kind of guess like how I thought the return that they got was underwhelming. I don't know. What was your guys' feelings on Vancouver's return that they got for JT Miller?
Yeah, I thought from the start that it was pretty underwhelming. They're looking. It seemed like they were looking for a center back, and they got one in Chytil, but he's a bit of a band-aid. Hasn't been able to stay healthy, and there's been like quotes going around. It's like you never know when the next hit he takes.
Yeah, the full trade is kind of slipping my mind.
Trav, the full trade? Yeah, so like for anyone that doesn't,
yes,
you're lagging there.
Sorry,
Trav.
yeah, you guys are kind of lagging on. Yeah, I know you guys are lagging on me too.
All right, so some bad internet connection to start here, but all right, yeah. So anyone that doesn't know, like the full trade was they sent Miller to the Rangers for Filip Chytil, Victor Mancini, and a 2025 first round pick, top 13 protected. Slides to 2026 if it ends up in the top 13. I think Vancouver sent over a prospect with Miller. I can't fully remember that one though, but the gist of the trade was essentially Vancouver getting Mancini and Chytil and a first round pick for Miller. So like I know, like Justin, you're going on there. Like Chytil's a bit of a band-aid, so it's gonna be curious to see how effective he actually is in Vancouver.
I think just based on other trades of similar nature that we've seen over the last year or two, that you could say this one was a little underwhelming. I thought, for a guy that's a top 3 player in Vancouver, I think they certainly could have did a little bit more to benefit themselves down the line. I'm not going to say Chytil's a bad pickup, but maybe a bit of a wild card pickup in terms of what he's going to kind of bring to that team, how much he's going to produce. And then, I mean, I don't really know much about any of the kind of the lower end or the prospects that were involved in the trade, so I can't even really comment on any of those guys. But I definitely thought initially when I seen it that they maybe could have squeezed out a bit more, but at the same time too, this was kind of getting to a rushed point almost. More and more kind of bad news kept spewing out about the whole Miller Pettersson and the locker room issues, and I just kind of wonder if the trigger was sort of pulled here to end all that, especially after and excuse me, I'm forgetting his name. Is it Alvin, or his last name's Alvin?
Alvin,
the GM
yeah,
of Vancouver there, after his kind of quote to the media about things not getting better, it was sort of like, all right, well, something needs to be done like right now. And I kind of wonder if the trigger got pulled out of force, I guess you could say.
I mean, That's just it. Again, when Miller has the no trade clause, he kind of holds the chips in terms of where he goes, and other teams know that, so they don't have to worry about overpaying Vancouver as much. To me, it's Vancouver's banking on guys hitting their potential rather than even banking on draft picks that they can flip for guys that are more established. Like they're banking on Chytil to be healthy and kind of live up to the potential second line center that he's shown back when he was drafted. And same with this Mancini kid, who's a big right shot defenseman. They're just banking on him to blossom into like the top four pick or top four D man that he's kind of shown flashes of at times or projects that he could be. So I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts based on like, let's compare this to the Rantanen trade. I mean, Colorado got maybe a flash in the pan in Nachash, but he's still going to be a 60, 70 point guy for him. What trade out of those two trades, though, like two superstars leaving and both fan bases kind of underwhelming return to a degree, but what trade would you guys take overall?
I don't know. I still feel like I'd take the Avs trade just because I think Natchez just overall is way better and consistent, healthier than Chytil is. And then, I mean, if you look at the Canucks trade as a whole, they sent the first round pick they got in the Miller trade for Marcus Pettersson. So then you're like, so it's like JT Miller and a few other pieces for Chytil and Marcus Pettersson is kind of like the main pieces going in, and like that makes the trade look a lot better for the Canucks. But I still think, other than what you're trading away, Natchez is the best player out of all those guys that were traded. Like for the teams, that were getting rid of their stars / superstars. So probably the Avs, but I liked that Vancouver kind of flipped the assets right away to shore up the defense, which, we've kind of talked about. They've needed to do that for, most of this year.
Yeah, I guess I would take probably like the Avs trade as well. In terms of a return. I think as far as best fitting pieces go, and I didn't really realize it until you had kind of mentioned it there, JC, about how the lines look, but I think Miller for the Rangers was exactly what they needed, and I'm pretty confident when I think that they're gonna flip the ship here, and they're gonna figure this thing out for the tail end of the season here. It's a dogfight for the wild card spot, but I just think that Miller might be the X factor in all those teams, getting the Rangers in over the likes of Boston, Detroit, Montreal. The Islanders are hot right now. All those teams that are in that mix. Yeah, again, like JC said, like that Rangers lineup just looks significantly better slotting Miller into that second line. I didn't even really realize it amidst all the rumors beforehand when it looked like Miller was maybe going to go to the Rangers. Now that he's there, it's evident that this is probably out of all those trades and recent trades, that might be the biggest fit in terms of what a team needed.
Yeah, the Rangers definitely probably got the best upgrade right now, like immediate upgrade out of every team. So yeah, no, the playoff race with them now is going to be interesting to watch. Kind of segues us into the main topic here of the pod. We can touch more on the Miller trade and everything else in an upcoming pod here. We'll revisit it all, but kind of get into our Atlantic division here. The last one we have to touch on in our midseason reviews here, guys. Trav, you kind of said it, like there's the Lightning, the Bruins, the Habs, the Red Wings, the Senators, all within, they're all 7 points. Like the Sens lead the pack with 62. Montreal, out of those 5, are last with 55, but that's 7 points separating them. And they're fighting for, between themselves, they're fighting for 3 spots, both wild cards and that third Atlantic spot. And then again, like you said, the Rangers are thrown in there as a wild card competitor for all those guys. It's just, it's not so much this year that the Atlantic is big and scary anymore. It's more the Atlantic has almost mellowed out in a sense that the top teams aren't are starting to take that step back and not blowing the rest of the division out of the water, or these bottom feeder teams that we've said need to take a step are finally taking their steps. Just in general, what's your guys' thoughts on this division as a whole?
Probably the biggest wild card division right now, from the bottom to the top. I like for a while it looked like Florida and Toronto running away with this division. That's not really the case anymore. Both teams haven't really played the greatest of hockey lately. Ottawa's kind of starting to nip at the heels. I think there's a lot of issues in Toronto lying underneath the surface, and we'll maybe get a little bit more into that when we highlight them. But you got the Red Wings, who look like they were down and out, have resurged under McClellan. Montreal's maybe starting to set back into reality again here. Buffalo, although I think a lot of people maybe had a good idea that they wouldn't make the playoffs, I don't think thought they'd be as bad as they were. Just a lot of unpredictability throughout the whole division, I think.
What about you, Justin? What's your thoughts? Trav kind of hit a good number of it, but do you have anything to add on this division?
No, not really. Just it's nice to see a bit more competition for Florida and Toronto this year, because the last pretty much since like the COVID kind of weird playoffs there, it's basically been Florida, Toronto, and Boston kind of in those top 3 spots, and the other Atlantic teams weren't even really sniffing for a wild card. It was kind of just accompanied by the Metro, and now this year everything's so tight in the Atlantic that they're all kind of battling really hard for this. They're kind of fighting for those 2 spots. Finally, it's good to see, Ottawa's on a bit of a, on a good stretch here. And like Trav said about the Red Wings, ever since they had a coaching change, they're 15-4-1. That's a pretty good 20 game sample for McClellan. And, we were kind of wondering when this sort of plan was going to happen for them. And, I don't know if it's that new coach boost or whatever that they get, but not a bad time for it, because it's kind of propelled them above a few other teams. But more all, it's just good to see a bit more parity with this division, because it was getting kind of bland there, waiting for one of these teams to step up. Now we've got a couple of them done it now.
That's just it. It's probably for the last 2 seasons, everyone's been clamoring for a Detroit or a Ottawa or a Buffalo especially, but they're a whole nother story, to take a step and at least not necessarily even make the playoffs, but just put a scare into the rest, those top 4 teams. And this year it's finally happening. Let's kind of, Boston's on the outside looking in right now. They've had some struggles. They're starting to show their lack of depth in the organization. Swayman got off to a bit of a rocky start, mainly because he missed training camp. Is this the year that we kind of see Boston fall out just because they don't have that same depth? They have one or two guys that they're relying on to do everything, and just every other team around them's gotten better, and they just haven't been able to keep pace. Is the downfall of the Bruins now?
Yeah, it seems like it's certainly coming to that. I kind of a little surprised that it didn't happen sooner. I feel like I've been waiting on it for a little bit now. But you look at the offseason, the whole, like you said, Brock, the whole dilemma with Swayman. They lose some guys and bring in some new guys through free agency. It's a different look of the Bruins than last year. Zadorov, as maybe overperformed in Vancouver. I think there was a lot of excitement when he got signed, and I just wasn't all myself. I wasn't all high and mighty on it. I kind of didn't really think that was the greatest signing for them, but the one thing about the Bruins too is they have not had games in hand on anybody that they're competing with in that wild card race, and it is now really starting to show. I think that loss to the Rangers last night was a very big loss for them because they're not playing with games in hand right now. You got to kind of you kind of got to keep your foot on the pedal and sort of stay up in the points when you don't have games in hand. And they miss out on in a 2-2 game in the third period. They miss out on at least squeezing out 1 point of that game. I have a really tough time seeing them making the playoffs now, just because they've been so up and down the last couple months. They get a little bit hot and just kind of keep themselves afloat there, and then they go on a bad stretch and don't do themselves any favors. Again, just the games in hand thing. It's been like that all season. They've had 3 or 4 more games played than their conference and their division rivals. So I just don't think time's kind of ticking there for them to sort of go on a hot streak.
The games in hand's big there because like Tampa has 4 games in hand on them. They have the most. Like Tampa's only played 52. But I think another one, like key thing to look at too, is Boston's goal differential is second worst in the division. Like Montreal's the only one with a worse goal differential. So it's one, like they're just not scoring enough, and at times they do get lit up. So I don't know. It's one where, did we maybe think that this was coming sooner? Yeah. Did a lot of people feel that Boston this season might actually pull something out just because it's the Boston Bruins? Yeah, I did. But like, kind of brought up the Lightning there, Justin. I don't know, like you can add on anything with the Bruins too, but they have the best goal differential in this division. And just for a team that a lot of people were saying we're going to be writing off at this season a bit, they've kind of bounced back and just shown that they're still a dangerous team, even though they are sitting in a wild card spot.
Yeah, just to go back to the Bruins real quick before, like, I don't have much to say about them other than I think, finally starting to see kind of, the post Bergeron, Krejci kind of doldrums of this team. They are always pretty stacked down the middle, and I think that's really affecting them now. Thought it was going to happen last year, but they got carried, immensely by their 2 goaltenders. So they could basically put out either of those guys, and they kind of knew they were going to get a win. And, and then this offseason, like Trav talked about the Zadorov signing, that was a choice. And then, giving Elias Lindholm an 8x7.75 is really kind of backfired so far this year. He hasn't even hit 30 points yet. They're at 56 games played. So it's not even close to the type of production you need from a first or second centerman, even a third. Like that's pretty iffy at best too. So just those things are really starting to catch up to them. And then I guess to go to the Lightning, I really like what they did in the offseason. I like the Stamkos thing was very shocking. I thought they were going to find a way to make it work. But as soon as you saw their plan to pivot to Jensel, and I just had a feeling like, I think a lot of guys would excel playing with Braden Point and Kucherov, even though he doesn't do it a lot 5-on-5, I don't think, but a lot of power play time. I think that really worked. And then, bringing back Ryan McDonough too, I think was huge for, shore up kind of their defense. And, kind of Hedman's still like just doing what he does. And finally, Vasilevsky, he's coming off surgery last year. He didn't really know what he's going to be like, and they had to kind of play catch up after he got back. And I don't know, it can't be easy for a goalie, no matter kind of who you are, to get back in that swing of things as much as they rely on him and how much he wants to be in the net. So, a long off season for them, I think, was kind of like a blessing in disguise because, they went to 3 cup finals in a row, and, that takes its toll on everybody on the roster. So that's what I've got for them right now.
Just another Sunday Bowl. This is Super Bowl 59. Get in on the action at Draftkings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is key to hoisting Vince Lombardi's trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at Draftkings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. New Draftkings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
Kind of jump to the other two teams in that mix, like right in that thick of everything. Detroit and Ottawa, somewhat built similar, but also some vast differences between them. Like you touched on the Allmark trade there, Justin. Ottawa's benefiting greatly from it. But it's more one where you look at these two teams that have finally taken this step and are finally pushing the big boys of the Atlantic Division a bit. Like Detroit's kind of bought their way into this position. Yeah, they have Raymond and Seider as 2 young guys up and coming. Edmondson's kind of in there. But like they have a Tarasenko, they have a Kane, Larkin's been there for how long? But like they've just bought like Andrew Kopp and JT Com for a lot of Detroit's roster is free agent buy-ins, whereas Ottawa's is a lot of young guys and then just smartly buying veteran guys. They're still missing pieces, but it's just 2 different philosophies here, both starting to pay off. I don't know which one you guys want to touch on, who of you guys want to touch on what first here, but like this is just refreshing, I find, to see these 2 teams back in this type of play, this type of level of play. And the fact that Ottawa right now is lined up with Toronto for a first round series just makes it all the more fun.
Yeah, I'll go for Ottawa here. I forget who it was because I read this the other day, and it may be Ray Ferraro, but don't quote me on that. I forget who it was, but somebody said that Ottawa is learning how to grind out wins, how to figure out how to win tight hockey games. And I think that's been a huge difference maker for them this year. And a reason why they're where they're at right now. This team is starting to gain an identity. I think the biggest thing for me this year, and I haven't watched a lot of Senators games, but from what I have watched is they're not from past seasons, they're not just ready to kind of roll over and die anymore, like they have for the past number of years. We see them get hot for a little bit, and then lose a game, and then just kind of sort of roll over and give in to I guess maybe that they're not up to snuff sort of deal. But now it seems like they're a lot of their younger guys are really stepping up in that system, and they're kind of like, no, we're here to stay. We're here to kind of give Florida and the Leafs some problems. That whole team kind of plays with a chip on their shoulder. Like you said there, Brock, first round with the Leafs would be just classic, but at the same time, I would also love a Florida-Ottawa first round. Given number one, it would be the Kachuk Bowl, and number two, that they played, I think, like two of the dirtiest hockey games last year against each other. So I think that would be an equally entertaining series as well.
Definitely. And you kind of said like the Sens are learning to win. I think now they've had the team adapt Brady Kachuk's like mantra of play. Like they've rallied around their captain finally. It's taken how long, but you can just see Kachuk's style of play imprinted on this team throughout the lineup now, and it's making such a difference. You got anything to add on the Sens there, Justin, or you want to touch on how vastly different the Red Wings are?
Not too much on the Sens, but kind of goes to show, like, this is a team that was kind of missing stability in net. And, they tried with, it was a while ago, they tried with Matt Murray, didn't work. And then they tried with Korpisalo, didn't work. Now they got Allmark, and it seems to, be the guy that has kind of been the right fit and has been able to perform. But it's also, these young guys getting better and buying in and, making the right moves to bringing in the right veterans to kind of go with this team. So, and I agree. Either one of those first round matchups, I think, would be just must watch TV. There's probably not a bad one that you can pick out of either of those three teams playing. To be honest with you, like a Florida-Toronto one would be wild. Like if the Sens catch that much fire. But anyways, on to Detroit. It's a team that I don't really watch too much, but it's surprising. Like I kind of ripped on this team, I think, either in our preseason kind of rankings, because I didn't think I trusted where they were going in net, because it was Talbot and Lyon, and just didn't really think that those were the two guys that they could really make a big jump with this season. But I mean, both those guys are playing about a 60-40 split so far. And I mean, Talbot's been awesome. Like Trav talked about him. I think it was Trav about maybe like the Four Nations, like a possible Four Nations candidate, because he's kind of had that good of a season. And Lyon has, kind of followed suit with all the games that he's gotten too. But another one where, you had these two young studs in Raymond and Seider, and you're waiting for them to, take the not really take the next step, but get used to the league. Like, they're 23 years old, and this is kind of the time where it's like, I think, like, make or break. Like, you'll see what they are, like, if they're going to be able to improve vastly in this league. And Raymond's leading the team, like, he's like 58 points in the 53 or 54 games that they've gotten. I mean, Seider just looks like defensive, like, stalwart out there. Like, just remember when he got drafted, I wasn't really sure about anything about him. It seemed like an odd pick, but clearly Stevie Y knows a hell of a lot more than I do with drafting. But and then like Edmondson, like, they're really starting to show out. Like, Dylan Larkin has been a stud. Patty Kane just doesn't really age. Like, he had a really slow start, but he's picking it up now, and they just kind of really seem to be going, like, pretty good as a squad. And like I said earlier, we'll see if it's the new coach bump, but let's just see if they can keep it up. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, this Atlantic division with these these 5 teams, not including Boston. So I'm really not too sold on them right now. Like, these 5 teams, if they're able to kind of keep this pace up, because it would make for a pretty interesting watch down the stretch.
That's the entire Eastern Conference wildcard race is going to make for an interesting watch coming down the stretch here and all that. But kind of jump to the top now of this division. We've touched on the middling teams here. Toronto and Florida, you guys touched on it earlier, like, they looked like they'd run away with the division. It'd be 1-2, fight it out for who gets supremacy of it. They've both tailed off. The Packs kind of caught them. They still have a decent handhold on the division overall. But Trav, you alluded to it too, like, earlier with Toronto, there's something missing in that lineup. And with Florida too, it's one, they're just not quite, it could easily just be they're resting, like, they know how to play through the regular season. I just expected Florida, like, I personally had them falling off a cliff, but now that they've done as well as they have, I kind of figured they'd be a little more dominant than they have been at times. I don't know what, like, if you guys have any thoughts on the Panthers, and just, they're kind of almost just on cruise control, but not an easy cruise control through the season right now.
Yeah, I don't think maybe Florida has been as good as they would have liked to be, but they're too good of a team not to be where they are right now. And I still think come April, they are one of the most dangerous teams in the Eastern Conference, at least. I just don't think a lot of teams match up with them. But I do, and I'll just reiterate what I said 5 minutes ago. I do like Ottawa's matchup with them just because of the grittiness. But yeah, like you said there, Brock, I think they maybe kind of been on cruise control here for a little bit. They're kind of just kind of different team from game to game. They come into some games and they demonstrate why they're the defending champs. And then, the next night they're fighting with a team that's well out of the playoffs. So I don't think there's much to be concerned with there right now. And we're still only at about, the 2/3 point of the season here. So I think as we get closer, kind of in the next 15 to 20 games here, as we kind of etch towards the playoffs, I think you're going to see them sort of tighten up their system and kind of get into playoff form here.
maybe a team that you brought up, like they're just good at knowing when to pick up their game, and that's just the signs of a true championship team. The team that's kind of right there with them is still learning to do that, and over the last month or so, there's been a lot of struggles in Toronto in terms of consistency and just what is the overall identity of this team, because they have the high end offense, they have the high end skill, but it's such a sharp drop off once you get beyond five or six like the top five forwards. Like once you get beyond Matthew Nyes as the fifth, like Nyes or Tavares as forwards, the Leafs have like no offensive depth whatsoever. And for a team that has a guy that can score 70, Nylander could probably pot 50, and you're still sitting there talking about lack of scoring. It just doesn't seem like a good recipe to me for a team that's supposed to be a cup contender. And yeah, they've shored up the defensive end, but like I don't know if you guys have what you guys think on the Leafs here. It's just they have so much more holes, and it just seems that they aren't willing to properly address them.
Copy and paste what I said about the Jets the other day. I can't get behind this team until I see something more when it counts. We all know that they're going to do well in the regular season. It would be a complete shock if they weren't, in the, top 2-3 in the Atlantic. I had no doubt in my mind this team would be where they are because of said top talent, Brock. They can just outscore, those guys can just outscore, their problems now. This is a team that I need to see what the Berube effect and what the effect on losing so much in the first round and then getting smoked in the second round against the Panthers. Like, what kind of toll is it going to take on these guys, and what is the change in the coaching philosophy? What's it going to show when it really matters? Do they have the two goalies that can kind of get them over the hump in the playoffs? Like Woll is hard to trust because he's always hurt. Stolar's like he's had a really, really good season so far, but I don't know how often he's had this much of a workload. I think they're missing a piece on the back end, but it really seems like they're trying to go for another centerman. So to kind of cut it short on the Leafs, I'm just, it's just one of those teams that you need to prove it to me in the postseason, because I don't take really much out of what they're doing right now because it's expected.
I think there's just too much noise surrounding that team as well. Like just so many repeated discussions about where Marner's going to end up next year and what's Tavares doing. Is Riley going to be a Leaf till the end of his career? You touched on the goaltending there, JC. Definitely, I think it's concerning come postseason, but I also at the same time think that is the least of their problems right now too. At the same time, I think it's something. Yeah, you got to wonder how they're going to perform in April, but at the same time, yeah, I just think all signs kind of point to so many other problems with that core 5-4, whoever you want to include in that mix. I had Berube as my Jack Adams pick at the start of the year. There was a stint there, I think, in maybe November, early December, where the Leafs were rolling, and I, kind of thought maybe Berube's kind of got sort of these guys to a new mentality, new level. But I don't know. Yeah, the same old story is starting to unfold here. I don't think it matters who they play in the first round. I'm pretty confident in another first round exit. it's just, and I work with a couple of big Leaf fans, and just chatting about the Leafs at work. Like the core isn't it. It hasn't been it for a number of years now. The fact that they've done nothing to shake it up yet. I don't think Treliving's done a terrible job there, but the fact that he's been there as long as he has, that core still remains intact. I get it. There's no move clauses, blah, 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 but they're not winning shit. They can hardly win a playoff round. I don't know why the hell you're thinking about a cup. That's just where I sit on the Leafs right now.
They're definitely a team that needs a major shakeup, and they're just refusing to do it.
Feels like we've been saying that for 3 years now.
Yeah.
We've been saying that on this pod for 3 years. I know a lot of people have been saying it for a lot longer.
I've heard a lot of Leaf fans say it since they lost to Columbus in that mixed bubble playoff thing there. And then a lot of fans really said it when they lost to Montreal the next year. Like those 2 COVID years that kind of messed things up, those were the times when the Leafs management should have taken a big hard look and said, yeah, something's off with this core group. Let's change it now before we're stuck. And now they're to a point where you're either losing Marner for free or you're stuck. So, but starting to run low on time. Last 2 teams in this division. I feel Montreal with not a lot to go on with this team. We kind of said it in our season preview. They just have to be playing meaningful hockey games late into the season. And they've set themselves up nicely to do that. Like they're starting to kind of fall out of a true playoff race, but they're still, all it takes is a hot week of games and they're right back in the thick of everything. So to me, Montreal is right where they kind of want to be this year. And now it's up to Hughes in the front office to just see like how much tinkering they want to do at the deadline here.
I'm really happy to see that they didn't roll over and die when they were at the bottom of the conference this year. That they've shown to everybody that the future is coming fast. I think we all knew that they're not quite there yet. They're very young, but a lot of positives to pick out from this season, regardless of where they end up.
100%.
Yeah, losing Gooley there was pretty tough for them. That's kind of one thing. Like they've lost, I don't know, 4 of their last 5 or a lot actually. I think 7 of their last 8 games now. Pretty much since Gooley went down. That was a big loss for them. Unfortunate because they were kind of on a heater there, winning a lot of games and against really quality opponents. So I also think it's just one of those things where I don't know. I wasn't expecting like a playoff berth or anything for them this year, but what you needed to see is exactly what you said, Brock. Meaningful hockey down the stretch, like an improvement. Like we don't need to pick in the top 5. Like we need to see that this core of players that we have put together can actually do something. Like they're improving, and they are. It's just it's still tough right now. Like next year is the year that I'd be looking for something a bit more. And I mean, they could still make the playoffs right now. Like they're not out of it by any means. I just probably don't see it this year, but they're on the right path.
Yeah. Lane Hudson gets a lot of praise in Montreal on that blue line, but Caden Gooley is probably the true stalwart of that blue line in Montreal, just for the stability he brings at being only 22 years old. Final team in this division, Buffalo Sabres. This is going to be quick. We might have to push a lot of the Sabres talk just to its own pod at some point, or half a pod, because there's
series of pods on the Sabres.
Dumpster fire.
There's so much to digest.
Can we throw out? I actually don't even have much on the Sabres. Like, they're just so bad, and it's so disappointing.
Honestly,
yeah.
like
that's about it.
It's more one like let's just kind of touch on the most recent big thing that's happened with them in terms of disappointments. Tage Thompson takes just an untimely hit from Stefan Nason. He goes down and there was no response whatsoever. Should that not just tell management right away that this group is not it? They need a major shakeup. Or if it doesn't even tell management, that should tell ownership. Okay, our management team is not capable of putting a group on the ice that is a cohesive team and can stand up for one another. We need new management. Like, it's got to be one of those things has to happen here shortly.
That whole scene is the epitome of why they're the bottom of the East, right there. That whole scene perfectly sums up why they are where they are and why they are where they have been for the last decade and a bit, as far as I'm concerned.
20 years, man. It's been almost 20 years.
Yeah, 2012 was their last playoff berth.
Like, yeah, there's a lot to actually go into. Like, if you wanted to break down a lot of things that is wrong with this team, like you said, that was tough to watch. Like, it doesn't, like, imagine that was like the Panthers or like Vegas or something, like one of their players. Like, it happened in Vegas like 2 days ago when Cooley took a run at Pietrangelo. Like, instantly he turns around and he has to drop the mitts because there's somebody on him. Like, it doesn't matter, like, if you're a tough guy or whatnot, you got to go in there and you got to do something. Like, who cares? Like, honestly, cross-check the guy anywhere. Like,
yeah,
you're not winning anything this year, so, like, what's wrong with a 5-game sussy? Like, you got to stick up for your teammates. Like, what does that show your star player when when they're just taking liberties and you're just like, oh, skate around on the ice like a lost puppy? Like, they did, like, that's embarrassing. Like, even if you're Tage Thompson, like, do you want to be a part of this? Like, like, it begs the question, like, a little bit. And they had a meeting, and then the next game, like, Dennis Gilbert goes out there and fights Olivier. Like, honestly, it does nothing. Like, that has nothing to do with what happened the game before.
I felt so bad for Gilbert when I saw that because, like, you're a sacrificial lamb because you're going against the heavyweight of the league. And it's literally like, okay, you have to go show that our roster isn't pushovers, which, okay, they are. If you have to send out Gilbert, who played maybe 3 more shifts that game after that fight, like, that just shows how soft the whole roster is then. If you have to dress a guy and then play him 4 shifts, and his first shift's 2 seconds, and he has to fight the heavyweight of the league. Like, it just so much needs to change in Buffalo.
And now there's talks of Cousins, like, being out, and talks of maybe Tuck. Like,
yeah,
I know Cousins is having a bit of a down year production-wise. It's just, this is one of those trades that you lose again, and you see Cousins probably go on and have a successful career. Like, start naming guys. We can name guys.
They're starting to approach a Jack Eichel situation again.
Yeah. So, like, you talk about getting on the outline, you talk about they need a veteran player. They needed one. That's what they needed out of Casey Middlestat, a trade from Casey Middlestat. They didn't need Bowen Byram. You had enough guys on defense. What you need to do was address another area. But instead, it's like, it's so questionable, all these things. And like you said, we don't have enough time to go through it all. But, like, this is it. Like, Cousins trade, you're probably not winning. If you do, I'll be shocked.
Yeah. So, Trav, you got anything to add before we wrap her up? No. All right. That's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you're watching on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this pod. Give us a review, hit like. Thanks for the downloads. Tune in next week. The funny, stupid 4 Nations tournament starting. we'll probably take some time to get into all the other news that we couldn't squeeze into this episode. So thanks, everyone, and catch you all next week.